Hello, I am going live from my computer. How are you? What's happening? Okay, it's working. Okay, first of all, shout out to my friend Rosa, who's my neighbor. How cute is this little thing? Everything is reverse here, so it's like really on this side. Whatever. Okay, so tonight's topic for all of you lovely ladies who are joining is about the Empowered Wife book, chapter 13. Gather round, my youngins. Bring your cup of tea before you go to bed. And we're going to talk about, just making sure everyone's asleep upstairs. I don't know who's making noise. I'm going to try to block this weird light that's bugging me. Okay, that's better. Okay, no. Everything's reversed. Okay. This is called staying in your own lane, staying on your own paper. What does this mean? Okay, let's start. This is chapter 13, page 111, for those of you that are following along in this awesome, riveting book on my assessment of each chapter that I find interesting. So I read chapter 13 over Shabbat. This was super helpful, and I'm sharing it with you. Let's go. Marriage counseling invites you to focus on what your husband is doing, what he's thinking, and what he wants, taking the focus away from your own actions, thoughts, and desires. It's a form for criticism, blame, and shame. It perpetuates the myth, if only he would change, I would finally be happy. I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, because I've seen counselors speak to me about certain topics, and it's not always about how he needs to change. Although there was a major focus on like what my issue was with that, with him. It wasn't so much about I need to work on myself. This chapter, if you don't want to work on yourself, you should just stop watching because she's going to give it to you. She's going to tell you exactly what she thinks. Okay, so what she says here, intimacy skills train you to stay laser focused on where your power is, your own paper. Your own paper. When you're tested in school, and you're given a paper to answer the questions, it's your test that's being graded for you on your name. And if you're busy looking at your neighbor's test questions and making sure that they're doing their test correctly, A, you're detracting from your own test taking time. You're not able to focus on your own questions. B, you're not even going to benefit from that because you're not graded on that test paper. So what does that mean in real life? If you're the kind of person who's like a helper, right? I think women naturally are genuinely a helper kind of person. We want to help people, right? I think one of the things that's special about a woman is this giving nature. Like I was just talking to a girl on Instagram who was like, wow, I can't believe you draw. I want to draw. I said, do it. She's like, oh, I just don't have time. I give and give and give. I give so many people things of myself. I said, you're saying yes to everybody but yourself, right? But that's the nature of a woman. She gives. So what she's saying here is that harms you because you're so focused on other things outside of what's in your life and what's for your control. You're just basically taking away from your own from your own focus. Okay, and why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? So I was actually talking to another friend tonight. I've been talking a lot, okay? Because I lost my voice last week and I've been catching up. I was sick. Okay? Okay. A true soulmate is a mirror. The person who shows you everything that is holding you back. The person who brings you to your own attention so you can change your life. This is what Elizabeth Gilbert, author, wrote. What does that mean? That means that everything your husband does, everything he says, everything that annoys you, everything that empowers you, everything that, all the pieces, that's actually talking to you about you. What's triggering you? Why is that triggering you? These are all very self-directed, focused questions. So if you're finding frustrations, and I'll give you a personal example. If I'm finding frustrations in my husband's eating habits, this is a big one. I speak to a lot of women who tell me, oh, I want my husband to lose weight. I want him to look better. I mean, blink if you haven't thought about changing your husband's habits. Like, really? Because I think we genuinely want to help improve the man, right? We want him to eat better. We want him to not smoke. We want him to not drink. We want him to be home at a certain hour, to sleep on time, right? All of these things. It sounds like control, right? So what she's saying is, stay in your own paper. If you're getting triggered by a man or anyone, let's say particularly your husband, this is for me. I'm going to tell you about me. I'm putting the book away because I'm going to talk about myself right now. Over the weekend, I saw my husband eating lunch on Shabbat, and I thought, well, he's really eating so much. And he shouldn't be eating that much. It's not healthy to eat so much, right? In my head, I'm just like thinking as a coach. I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is not good. This is not good. And I was reading through this book, and she talks about how if that's triggering you, ask yourself, what are you deflecting away from yourself that you're focused on him for this particular issue? And it was so clear to me, like, I wasn't eating the right way either. I wasn't taking care of my health. In fact, I was sick. I was feeling down about how sick I was. He was not sick. So, I mean, between the two of us, he was doing better, even if he wasn't eating right. So she talks about how it's basically a tracker. When you're upset with something that's in your spouse or anybody in your life, it's really about identifying something that's trying to speak up within you. It's trying to speak up. It's trying to have a voice. But a lot of times our ego gets in the way. What does that mean? The ego wants to protect you and wants to make you feel like there's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, he's doing something wrong, and let's focus on that. But the truth is, you recognize in others the deficiencies that you yourself recognize in yourself. If you take care of your health, you know what happens? You're not focusing and deflecting on him. You're just like, hey, I need to focus on myself. And when you focus on yourself, he's not feeling pressured. And on top of that, you're inspiring people around you, maybe him, to kind of take ownership of his own life. I told my husband, everything you do, like, it's great. It's for you. And I'm not going to, and I actually said this to him. I said, I'm going to work really on not focusing on your healthy habits, because you're an adult and you get to decide what you do with your body. Of course, I feel like, yes, it directly intertwines with mine, right? Like, I want him to be a healthy father for my kids. But at the same time, she talks about this is based on fear. Can you control that? Can you control the things that you're trying to control? That, oh, he should eat a certain way, so he should be a certain way. Or he should do certain things, right? I want him to make sure he makes enough money, so I'm going to direct him on how to control and how to tell, but I'm being helpful. You should call this person and tell this person about this business, blah, 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 blah. You're trying to be helpful, but at the same time, what are you doing? You're trying to control things. And then what ends up happening is he doesn't take ownership for himself because you're doing all the work. Let go. This is why this is so powerful. Empowered wife means you're relinquishing control of the things you never really had control over. You're just recognizing it, that you're done with needless emotional turmoil. You're releasing it, and now you're just focusing on yourself. That's on your paper. I'm going to go skip to this. Confusing courage with controlling. Practicing the 6 intimacy skills is a lot like applying the Serenity Prayer in my marriage. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Who can argue with the universal truths in this prayer? But, she said, for years she struggled with understanding this concept, because what she realized is she was unclear on which things that she could change and which she could not in her own marriage. For example, if we were going out to a party, I figured I had a say over what we were wearing. That meant I could criticize John's shirt or tell him to change his shoes, and I believed I was still squarely in the part where you change the things you can. I figured I was just being courageous. So I couldn't understand the hostile response I was getting from simply trying to help him dress better. She was like, Why is he so angry that I'm just trying to be helpful? You know, I just want to help you. And like, I'm just trying to make sure that you're, not looking like an idiot, or like, what was the fear behind that? And she talks about this. Oh my gosh, this is so useful. I'm going to get to it. Here's a metaphor I've come to rely on for deciding if I should comment on something. I ask myself if this is something that's on my paper. As a kid at school, it was very tempting to look at someone else's paper. This is what I just discussed with you, to see if she was doing the homework right. But ultimately, my grade was a reflection of what was on my paper when I turned it in, not hers. I was responsible for, and only responsible for, what's on my paper, for my own work. So today she asks herself the same thing. Is it on my paper? Am I responsible for and in control of this about how I dress? Yes, but not how someone else dresses. Okay, so now my version of the Serenity Prayer is more like this. God, whose paper is this on? Answer A, which comes up way more than you think, not mine. Then she says, help me be respectful and grateful for it. If the answer is B, where she says, whose paper is this on? Mine, then she says, help me be brave enough to honor my desire about it. A lot of us are not brave to honor our desires. I decided to honor my desire. Can I just tell you? I wrote down I want to draw more professionally. This was a desire I had for me. And I remember feeling very resentful that my husband was doing his Torah classes, thinking, oh, he gets to leave the house and do his Torah classes, and I'm here in the house. I had a lot of time on my hands to be, let's say, doing things that I could do after the kids are in bed. But I was focused on resenting that about him, that he's choosing to spend time away from home, doing something for himself, which is not a bad thing. He's honoring his desires. So once I got acknowledging with my own desires, look, I want to show you something. And if you follow me on Instagram, you already saw it, but I'm going to share it with you. I bought myself these pencils. I got myself an eraser somewhere here. I can't find it. Oh, here. This special eraser, and it looks like a pencil. And a different eraser. And I started to draw. And I'll tell you, this is a drawing that I started. Can you tell who it is? What am I trying to tell you? There's parts of you, inside of you, that's just sitting, waiting to be expressed. You have so much creative energy. You have so much amazing potential. And we drain so much of our energy on this needless emotional turmoil of trying to be something for somebody who he doesn't need to be forced to take care of himself. If he doesn't feel like it, that's his choice. If he doesn't want to, that's his choice. I'm not talking about drug addictions here, okay? I'm not talking about he has a gambling issue. I'm talking about like basic things where he chooses to do things a certain way and you don't approve of them because they're not your way, okay? That's his choice. I was talking to a friend tonight and she was like, I don't know. My husband needs to lose so much weight and he doesn't really acknowledge that. And he's not really working on himself. And I'm working on myself and I'm eating healthy and blah, 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 blah. And then, you know what? It made so much sense to me what she's saying because I could so relate to it. And I told her, first of all, get this book. I told her, get this book because this is not your paper. This is not your responsibility to focus on what he's eating and what he's doing and when he's doing it and how he's doing it, because that's gonna affect your marriage intimacy. No man wants to be with a woman who's a nag and annoying. Every man wants to feel empowered. How do I know this? I don't know. I'm not a man. I just read it in this book written by a woman. Who knows? I guess she knows. I don't know. But apparently my husband agrees because whenever I read this book, I feel like my marriage gets like a boost. You know what I mean? Like an energy boost where like there's a little bit more balance. What does this mean? This means you have so much power in the way you communicate. You have so much power. We feel like, oh, our men are not listening to us. They're not doing what we want. They're not respecting our wishes. The truth is, we're asking them for things outside of our control. Like, this is not fair to burden him with changing himself. Just like, like you can't get a plant. This is such a good analogy. You cannot get a plant to sprout faster if you pour more water on it or if you burst it with more sunlight day and night. You just can't make it grow faster. It just has to take its time to evolve into the plant that it's going to sprout into. You are merely planting seeds in your husband by being the woman that you need to be for yourself. I'll tell you, see the story of this hair cover? I'm going to tell you a story. I wanted to stop covering my hair. This is a thing for me. Like, I struggle with this hair cover thing. I like my hair. I like the way I look with my hair. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a rabbi's wife. It's not something I should be thinking about, right? I shouldn't be doing that. And I thought to myself, I can choose to uncover it because it's a choice. It's my choice. And I have repercussions from that. Or I can think about how to work on myself and get something that makes me happy. So I got rid of all my hair covers that make me feel like it's bothering me. Like when you're unhappy with something, that's like a red flag. It's not to be angry about it. It's not to ignore. It's to acknowledge the emotion. It's to acknowledge the emotion that's there because it's giving you a message. Whether you're jealous, whether you're upset, whether you're angry, whether you're frustrated, it's a message for change, for movement. Emotion is requiring motion. And for you to move through that emotion, you have to acknowledge the emotion. I was frustrated and I kept kind of being angry at my husband, thinking like, if he wasn't a rabbi, I wouldn't have to worry about covering my hair so much. Okay, I'm just being real. There's no point to be like, oh, I live in a la-di-da world and everybody feels great about every religious decision we make. So I said to myself, what do I really need? I need to pay attention to myself, to feel beautiful, to look good. And for me, showing my hair feels beautiful. What can make me feel beautiful besides that? And I went to my friend Rosa and I got a bunch of these cute little things. And it was expensive in my budget, right? I don't usually spend money on myself, which is probably why I was feeling this way. Because I'm around all these beautiful, experienced women, or maybe on Instagram. I see all these people posting and they look great and they do so much great with their body and themselves. And I'm thinking like, oh, I wish I was more of what I can be. But that's really a power struggle within myself. I couldn't really blame that on my husband because it's a problem for me. It's not necessarily a problem, it's just a trigger, a recognition of like what's going on within here in my head. And the urge went away when I started to listen to the voice that says, you need to pay attention to your own needs. And I didn't want to compromise my marriage for that or the religious level of my family. So I just adjusted and pivoted. And that's what marriage is. That's what having a situation, relationship. It's not about getting angry, getting angry and like saying like, oh, I'm so upset that he's this way because this is affecting me to be this way. It's about recognizing it. Well, what is this teaching me right now? What is the lesson here? This book teaches me so many lessons. I'm just like honestly learning so much from here. Okay, so there's this story here. She talks about a girl who says she was very focused on her husband's schedule, not syncing with hers. She didn't get to see him very often. I really related to this one. She said when she's going to bed, he's often staying up late. When she stays up and ready to start her day, he needs to keep sleeping. So she asked, pleaded, begged. She tried so hard to get his schedule to be more like hers, right? How many of us do this? Like, oh, I have a solution. You're just not interested in the solution. So you're part of the problem. So like, what is she saying? She says, I wanted his schedule to be more like a normal person's schedule should be. So she insisted. And the more she insisted, the more he resisted. This is not a new concept. The more you insist on something and you push, the more they resist. And you don't feel like it's not an intimate feeling, like to feel so loved and like just doesn't feel great. So what happened? She took that as a personal rejection. If he really wanted to spend more time with me, he could do his work earlier and get up earlier, and then we'd be on a similar schedule, she told me. And basically her tone, how she was talking, she's basically saying what she really needed was for her husband to change for her to be happy. If your premise for happiness is based off of your husband needs to be a certain way or change for you to be happy, that's not a real desire. That's not a clear desire, what she describes. A clear desire is something that you want independent of other people's actions. Meaning like, I want specifically what you want. She wants to spend more time with him. So that's a pure desire. But to say like, I want him to set up a schedule so we could spend more time together, this is already like a convoluted desire where she's blaming him and putting the responsibility and the burden on her husband to do certain thing for her to be happy. This was my life for many years. It's not a happy marriage. I'm saying like I loved him, but like you basically compromising so much happy moments because you're like in such a negative and mental headspace about like, why can't he be a certain way? Why can't he be better? Okay. She seemed confused when I asked her about her self-care. How are you doing with your oil paintings? I asked her, knowing that was something she enjoyed very much. She was quiet for a moment and then admitted she hadn't painted a thing in months. So basically, the coach, the author of this book, is asking the person who's complaining about her husband, instead of saying, hey, let's talk about how to make your husband understand your needs better, which is what most counselors will do, she says, hey, let's focus on your own page. Like, we can't force him to be a certain way. We can't force him to wake up, right? If he wants, out of his own will, it'll come from him. But the goal is for you to focus on yourself. So not to make him give it to you. Give it to yourself. So now what is that she gives to herself? Time for herself. Self-care, drawing. This was exactly me. When my husband and I had this argument about how he's out of the house in the evenings learning Torah, and I was like, well, I would like to spend more time with you. You don't want to spend time with me. What kind of marriage is this? And I realized something like, we do have time together, but I was becoming like this needy person where I don't feel like I have an identity without him. That was a problem. So he's like opening that as like a real thing that I'm dealing with. I don't see it that I have this problem. I had to humble myself without the help of this book, by the way. Like, this book is much better now. Like, with the help of this book, it's much better now. But I did it on my own. What did I do? I'm going to tell you. I went on Amazon and I ordered a 1,000-piece puzzle because I thought that will keep me busy and be productive and draw, like, have a nice big picture. That was basically a most miserable experience. I do not like puzzles at all. It's exhausting to see 20 different shades of blue on a sky. Not my idea of fun. I did, however, build a business out of the space that I had because I said to myself, I really like helping people, and it just opened up organically because when you open up into a space of creative thinking instead of destructive thinking of like, why is he this way? Why can't he be a certain way? You're holding on to all that pain and that anger. You cannot be in a creative space. And that's God's directing you through a good way. If he's telling you and you're feeling frustrated, that's actually a good thing because that's where change happens. A lot of change comes from desperation. I would never be doing these lives if I wasn't an angry, desperate person at one point wanting a different life for myself. This is the hard, honest truth. And I'm so happy with the life I have now. Thank you, Esther, from the past, who was a miserable, angry person. Thank you, Esther, because you had to go through your pain to become me. And that's what I want you to tell yourself when you're going through something hard. You're evolving and actually learning from who you are. I don't know. That's just me. And eventually I became a coach and started doing lives and started talking to people who actually were curious to hear what I had to say, versus like my husband who was falling asleep on the couch. And I paint him as like this like horrible person, but he's like a genuine, I really like him as a human being, and I think we're good friends too, on top of like being married partners for life with kids, which is great. So, okay, I will share with you this page. This is about when papers collide. So this woman was saying how she was trying to teach her child something, how to not leave socks on the floor, and her husband kept picking the socks up and putting it in the laundry bin in the kids' room. So she said to the daughter, I'm not going to do your laundry unless it's in the laundry bin, because I want you to keep your room clean. And her husband was sabotaging the situation by going in the room and cleaning the laundry for her. So now for the child. So she was telling the coach, like, it's not right. He's not respectful. He's not doing things correctly. So she started to really dig a little deeper. And what she uncovered was the woman basically wanted her daughter to keep a clean house in her room, which is not uncommon. But her husband was keeping the room clean. It was his choice. She's not being forced to clean the room, which she said is okay. And she made it clear to her daughter, like, you're very lucky that your father is cleaning, because in real life, that is not going to happen. So she learned to let go of her husband's choices and her daughter's choices and decided on owning her own. No one's forcing her to clean the room. She's fine with that. And she made a decision that this is where she stands with this. And that's on page 116, 117. And that was her. Tiffany knew that she could continue to express her pure desire to have a tidy room by detaching from the outcome. She was choosing harmony and intimacy with her husband over a few dirty sacks that she no longer has to pick up. She even took a playful approach by saying to her daughter, "You're so lucky your dad did the laundry. Otherwise, you'd have had to go barefoot today." In a light way, she acknowledged the different policies between her and her husband and let her daughter know she was taking her chances with her socks. Can I just tell you how many unnecessary nights go on in marriages where they could be together, enjoying each other's time, playful, happy, but they're spent separated because there's this need to control, the need to push for an agenda, the need to feel justified and right. I'm right, like he doesn't necessarily have to agree with you, and that's okay. You guys are two different people, and he may not understand you even if you're right until years go by. Accept that about him, that this is part of your growth too, to accept him the way he is. That's also part of your growth, for him to grow into a better person and for you to grow into a more accepting human being as well. And you know what you create gets mirrored. So there are parts of you that he's learning to accept also. Okay, next time we're going to talk about a different topic. I think we'll talk about communication is overrated, which is chapter 14. See how that goes. And also chapter 15, which was the top 10 ways to control your husband. None of these work. That was an interesting read. That made me laugh. I thought that was funny. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for joining. What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. Enjoy Martin Luther King Day if you're celebrating or if you're off tomorrow. And thank you for joining. Please share your thoughts. If you have anything you'd like to comment on, share this with somebody who you think might benefit from this. And I always love to see any insights that you have on this book or on the feedback that you have from what I've shared. So thank you so much, and have a good night. Thank you. And again, shout out to Rosa for this cute little hair cover. It's so cute. Thank you. How do I end this on the computer? All right, bye.